Hello everybody, I'm Ard, and welcome to another episode of Minecraft Enigmatica 2 Expert. Today, we're sitting here in my Thaumcraft lab so that we can continue on with the quest book because we are way behind still. If we look at the Thaumcraft chapter, you can see that we are less than halfway done. So I figured we should actually work on banging most of this out before we actually pivot over to Astral Sorcery. So I figured we would start with something simple. If we go into the Thaumaturge, into the Alchemy chapter, we can pick up where we left off, except we aren't going to immediately go to the Essentia Smelting like I had originally planned, but instead over to Hedge Alchemy, where we are going to do this first step of basic duplication of gunpowder, slime ball, ink sac, and glowstone dust to complete this step. And to complete this is actually pretty easy because you just need 2 of each item to do this. And if you're just waiting till as late in the game as I am to do it, well, you already have plenty of all of it. Oops. So what you do is you chuck one in, let it cook, which creates everything you need to create another one, and then you toss the second one in to duplicate it, which gives you 2 of them. And there we go. Same with all the rest. The reality is you could put in the Essentia that you need right here and to fabricate it from just raw materials, but we don't really need to do that here, at least to complete this step. And that opens up the next step of Hedge Alchemy, which requires we get a few more things. In this case, we've already got the string and the clay. We just need cobwebs and a lava bucket. Now, I've got to be honest, I have no idea why clay and string are already completed here. I don't know. Alright, and now I am the object lesson. Be very careful when throwing things into the crucible. I just threw my Thaumaturge in there and had to go create a new one. So it is extremely easy to throw the wrong things in there. Just be careful. So the next step up is the cobweb, which is kind of a trap because it doesn't require 2 cobwebs, it requires a string to make into the cobweb. In theory, you can use a cobweb to preload this. It has 5 of it in it as well as 1 bestia, but instead I'm going to use an amber and pull out the other material for uses later. So in goes the amber, and in goes the string, and out comes the cobweb. And then out comes all the other materials, and a little bit of flux. And the last step is the lava bucket, which is a bit trickier because you can't just toss the bucket in, because if you toss the bucket with lava in, as I found out, it just eats the bucket and puts all of those materials in instead, which is not what we're after. So instead, what we're going to do is use some of this lava stone we've been getting from loot chests because it creates terra and it creates ignis. Creates a lot more terra than we need, but we'll just extract the extras out and not worry about it. You just chuck in everything that we need, and then toss a bucket in, and out comes a lava bucket. And if you have excess like this, you just have to put more water in, let it heat back up, and you can get the last of the Essentia out. And in my case, a little bit of flux again. And that finishes that next step of Hedge Alchemy up, which opens up the Everfull Urn, Liquid Death, which is one of the forbidden ones, which is why it's purple and will cause madness. And then the Potion Sprayer, which we can't do because we don't have Essentia Tubes yet, because that's over here. So the Everfull Urn we can't actually do yet. It is infinite water, which would be useful if we didn't have a ton of others, but we don't have enough research. So what I'm actually going to do is a bunch of research to fill out some things that I don't have right now to open up some other chapters. So I went and did some research and got enough stuff to open up the Everfull Urn, which is one of the quests we need to complete, which is why we're doing this. So going back into the Thaumaturge, you can see I already pressed the complete button on it because I got a little ahead of myself, and it just tells you what it does, how it works, and then how to make it, which is just basic viz in a flower pot. And to make the Everfull Urn, it takes 30 aqua, 10 fabrico, and 10 terra. Luckily, I have a bunch of aqua and terra viz crystals, so that's easy enough. And for the fabrico, we're going to use the petal apothecary, which is pretty easy to make in the scheme of things, and gives exactly the amount that we needed. And a flower pot is just a flower pot. And we're done with the Everfull Urn now. So I think the next step is to also do another step backwards and go make enchanted fabric and the starting outfit for Thaumcraft to go with my goggles. And the recipe to make the enchanted cloth is actually pretty easy since it's just string and any wool on the normal arcane workbench and a small amount of viz. And to make the armors is this just the standard armor patterns with a bunch more viz. All right, and now I match the part. I should note that these pieces can all actually be dyed, but it's subtle because you can clearly tell the blue from the purple on the bottom right now. But you just put it in the normal crafting grid to dye it. And there, you can barely tell the difference, but it's at least mine now. These also provide a viz discount, each piece does, that makes it a little bit cheaper to use the arcane work table. But that finished up those 2 quests. I think the next one I'm going to open up is the Thaumic Dioptra, which again, still not the Essentia Smelter, but we'll get there. And the Thaumic Dioptra is under the Artifice chapter. And here, well, we've already got the research and the essentials we need. And now we can go ahead and make it. As this says, it scans the areas around it for how much viz is available, which doesn't matter because we're in a compact machine. But it's pretty simple to make. It's just arcane stone, viz resonator, thermometer, and some plates, which is all stuff we've got. And another item completed in the quest log. If we put it on the ground over here, you can see that it then visualizes the amount of viz in the 13 surrounding chunks. However, since we're in a compact machine, this isn't really useful to us. If I were to take this outside into my main base, it might give us a better idea where we might want to place a more permanent position, but I don't really want to take a chance of blowing up my base with flocks. I don't need to taint the whole world right around my base. That sounds like a bad idea. All right, one last task before we move on to the Essentia Smelter, and that's to get the Infernal Furnace out of the way, just because it's one more task we can easily knock out. If we look on the Artifice tab, it's right over here, and we click into that, and we just need an observation, which we have. Obsidian, nether brick, and blaze rods, because it wants you to get it from the nether, because obviously Infernal Furnace. And then Ignis and go to the nether. So we can complete that. And it tells us all about it. And it also shows us how to make it, and it's a multi-block structure of nether bricks, obsidian, iron bars, and a lava bucket. Also, we can apparently make triple meat treat now. I don't know why this is here. Because it is a product of the Infernal Furnace. Before I make this, I probably should point out that my quest is complete because this doesn't actually require you to make it. It just requires you have the materials to make it. But I'm going to, just on principle, to make the triple meat treat. And to do it, you just follow the instructions in here. You know what happens if you don't read the instructions? You forget to use the Salus Mundus on it to actually create it. And there we go. And now it's actually the furnace. Yep, it looks appropriately angry. That said, the hopper still doesn't appear to work, so that's a bust. But this appears to be working now. I'm going to see if the bee grubs work as well. Apparently I have to move the chest up though. And the bee grub cooked, but didn't make a nugget. Okay, so the chest can just be shoved back in right next to the grate like that, and it just works. So that simplifies that. Still can't figure out how to automate input into this though. There's gotta be a way, but I don't know. I'm not ever gonna use this really, because it generates flocks. Anyhow, now we've got a supply of our meat nuggies and we can go make our meat treat. Processed infernal meat product. Yummy. Alright, enough excuses. On to the Essentia Smelter. And one of the reasons I was putting this off is because I needed to get one of each of these next tier crystals, which I now all have. So we can hit the complete button. Now, we need theory and observation, which we have, and we just need to make the smeltery, which requires brass plates, which are exactly what you think. They're just alchemical brass tossed into a metal former or the metal press, same as normal. And everything else is pretty bog standard for parts. And now I've made the Essentia Smelter. So coming back into the alchemy book, we can now complete this. Now what this does is it breaks objects down into their essentia for storage into like jars and whatnot later, which is a bit further in, and it uses coal, but it does create flux, which will eventually spawn a rift in here. I mean, we do want to cause that because you do need to scan that. I don't know if I want to do it in here or not. I haven't quite made up my mind, but until you do it, you can't get the items to clean up the mess. But as you can see, this leads into other trees here, including the warded jars, which we do need. This is what you store the essentia into. So I think for now, what we're going to do is we're going to put it on the ground right there, and we're going to ignore it for the time being and cover this in more depth in another episode when I can go deeper into how to properly wire all of this up, and potentially melt down everything in this room. But, that's a problem for another day. So let's grab the couple rewards we got out of this chapter for today. Paintings, congealed blocks, an unbreakable wand now that I've already made it. I'll take free impulse ducts though, especially since these are the ones that transfer items and RF at the same time, kind of like the Ender IO conduits combined with the power cables. And a launch pad. They really want me to get into advanced rocketry. So all in all, not too bad rewards today. I'm not going to complain. Anyhow, as always, I'm Ard. Thank you for watching and have a nice day.